to the Flow Show. Sarah Felicia here, and we have.
Tim Glover here.
And today we're talking about getting out of Groundhog Day. So join us. We look forward to having a deep dive conversation. That was a lovely intro today, Tim Glover.
Thank you. That was just a jumpy little tune we wrote back in 1928, I think. It was called Sanctuary. No, it wasn't 1928. It was back in the day when I was a young man, and my wife and I were out on the road doing music full time. It was called Sanctuary.
I've had the privilege of listening to that song.
Yes,
It is beautiful.
That's a beauty. That's a good one. It's a jumpy little tune, and you can dance to it.
And you can dance
to
anything.
You can dance to it.
So today we had, we're talking about being grounded, getting grounded, and then we thought, hey, let's call this episode "How to Get Out of Groundhog Day." What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
So we'll listen for the answer.
Great movie.
Groundhog. So ground. I never really when I said, hey, it's like Groundhog Day. It's like the word ground is in that. Groundhog Day. So my observation, because we were talking about this just before we actually went on air, is everyone's in the do-over pattern. Like we're going through the okay, let's actually cut one layer deeper layer, and deeper letting go of deeper wounds around the idea of who we are, why we are, where we are, how we are, this whole idea of what is it to be on the planet at this point in time? Why is COVID happening? Why is that relevant? Why would that be happening right now? And you were reading something from either a book or I can't remember, it was a book. I think it was a book. And we started talking about the idea that what's really needed at this point in time is people to become much, much more grounded. And myself, I'm in that as well. Hey, Joel.
There we go, Joel. Hi, Joel. Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for joining us live.
We're talking about being grounded.
Yes, perfect.
And it's a perfect thing.
Yeah, getting grounded. I'm there.
Yeah, seeing the same days differently. Yes, the whole idea with Groundhog Day, and it's just a very funny movie with Bill Murray. He starts to realize after a while that he's just repeating. He gets an opportunity. Actually, when I just watched it recently, which is a couple of years ago, I can't remember that I actually went through the whole movie because it becomes so monotonous after a while of going through the same day every time. And it seems to me that we as a species are going through this. And the idea with this epidemic COVID is, in a nutshell, is to help us actually realize, is this the reality that we want? And then the structure's in place, this is what we want, or do we have a better orientation that we could actually bring to the world? And what's necessary to actually bring that better, more loving, inclusive, generous, thoughtful, present reality is that we have to become grounded. And Sarah, why is grounded? What is grounded to Sarah DeFelice?
Grounded. Grounded for me is this unshakable knowingness of thyself.
Okay.
To know yourself and to know that you are safe, you are enough, to be able to trust yourself, that whatever it is that you need in your existence and your reality is coming to you. And so we were sort of, before the live, we went live, we were talking about what is this reality right now? And there's like this storm that's happening around us. And for me, it's about how can we be the eye of the storm and allow just whatever sort of needs to be shaken up so that we can really, as a society, become grounded in a new understanding of what is real and what is most important. As we've talked about the death of truth and the rise of trust as a sort of key theme in this space. And so it's, in our Groundhog Day, like Vicky said here, seeing the same thing, seeing the same days, but differently. It's each day we can wake up and have this opportunity to see ourselves differently and use the reflection of what is happening in a storm. And if something is triggering us, to use that as a reflection to heal unseen parts of ourselves that we didn't know existed.
Well, sir, I'd like to ask you this question now that you've actually enlightened me with that answer. I'm actually rather liking this being the interviewing today.
This is not an interview show. This is a
I know, but it's just I'm feeling like that's the identity I'm kind of playing with right this second.
All right.
Because you have a podcast as well called Speaking from the Root.
I do.
And we were talking just a few moments ago about, this isn't a question because now I turned the question into a statement, which would have been an inclusive statement. It's kind of like a question. Is that if we actually are talking about the root chakra, mm-hmm. one of the things I'm reminded of is the fact that religion really, really helped us get freaked out about down there, because down there, especially if it's close to where the nethers are, but down there in the ground, that's where hell is. Okay, well, you can't be actually going down from a religious standpoint, and this is more Christianity, more so than anything in the East or Middle East. But Christianity actually really, really made it clear that you couldn't go down because that's where hell was. And the idea is that's what grounds us. It's actually put our roots into the ground. So metaphorically, we can just use our imagination from a mechanics standpoint, just allowing ourselves to actually just go down into the earth and feel what that's all about. That actually is really, really helpful, because in our society has been a head-based, because it's been patriarchal, it's male, mm-hmm. It's masculine, dominant in the head. And so it's dominant because up here is where the yang is, and yin is rising, yin is down below. That's the earth that's rising. Mm-hmm. So to get grounded, one needs to actually become more earth-oriented. There's a science concept called earthing. Lots of research on this, and the benefits of actually just taking your shoes off and going out and standing on the earth are profound. Being able to go and hug a tree, just even orienting from the fact that the earth is uplifting, it's supportive, and that ties into some of the Buddhist or Zen philosophies, and just how the meridian system works, and how the bottom of our feet and kidney 1 accommodate energy coming up. And if we don't have that, we're not grounded. We get pulled off all over the place. It's my observation right now that we have a lot of people being pulled off into outer space all over the place. If you just catch a news feed from the United States at this point in time. Not that there's anything against the United States, wonderful place, but there's a bit of I'm ferociously independent. I'm freaking going to do things my way, and don't anybody tell me what to do. So you're going to tell me that we're quarantined, I'm going to actually bust out. If you tell me they're actually going to pass a bill where you can just come into my house at any point in time, test all the family, and then take them out, when they want to, I'm really going to get upset about that. All I know is that freedom is most important to me. Well, grounded freedom is really important. Ungrounded freedom, not so helpful. Kind of, that's what leads to crazy situations. Mm-hmm. So the question I was going to ask is in your travels, what techniques, mechanics do you have, or have you heard from other people that actually help you be in that place you talk about when you're really, really aware of who you are and why you are?
I think that you said it exactly in terms of what is it, probably a lot of people have heard getting grounded by earthing or hugging a tree. And it really is about being in nature and learning from nature, like using nature as our most clear guide of who we are, in terms of unconditional, in terms of simplicity, in terms of just even connecting to our breath and the profound joy that can occur in just breathing and communing with nature and being a part of nature, and understanding that, like you were saying, the old mindset of with religions and whatnot, kind of one being this outer authority that it's somebody else dictating who I am or how I should be or what reality is, and two, it's this understanding that heaven is not a place out there. this is an idea that we have to die to experience heavenliness. And
Yes.
for me, the new world is about understanding, like, what if what if heaven is meant to be here on earth, and connecting to what is essential in the human experience is simplicity, is again to connect to our true nature, the nature of who we are. And I think in that world, in that old world, we got so lost in other people's reality. We got lost in what was important and what was essential, and it's burnt us out. Or like you said, it keeps us flying around in outer space. Like, what is freedom? This is actually something I've been talking a lot on my podcast about, freedom and commitment, just through my own wounds and my own learning and growth, of like wanting to have this sense of freedom, and going through the pendulum swing of what that means. But true freedom, what I've come to understand, is having some structure. It is having this kind of group mindset about what reality is, and what is important and what isn't essential, and what is the piece that's cohesive within us, what is that stickiness that's keeping us together in our evolution, what is that true point of connection. Because like you said, freedom, if we were all just kind of flying out into outer space,
Yeah.
what is life at that place, and understanding what it means to feel connected to yourself, and then how you can connect with others. And I think that's what we're all learning right now. And Vicky has said here in the comments, let's go back to the Groundhog Day, and then I'll throw it over to you. It was the same day, but each day he tried to manipulate it to his will. He remained miserable until he surrendered to the true important details of the day. And really, like what we talk about on Flow Network, it's about being others focused. Like,
Yeah.
there's a sense of being first knowing thyself, and then realizing it is about our connection with others, and it's about um, dancing together.
But I mean, it's a great, what do we call that? Post line comment? I guess it's a comment. It's
Comment.
me,
Thanks, Vicky, for that comment.
thank you, Vicky. Yeah, because the thing that I'm growing up the way that I did, and then the age that I am, and just the education I received in business, everything was always about out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've come to appreciate is for me personally, and then I just thought it was very unique to me. I started to realize I basically everything I am experiencing is 100% my experience. So I
Mm-hmm.
have this relationship with my inner world, and then I also have a relationship with the outer world, and then I have a relationship with other people. And in the work that we've done, I came to realize quite quickly is that someone's interpretation of Bob is not who Bob is. It's just their interpretation of Bob. And Bob said this to me, and Bob pisses me off, and Bob did this, Bob did that. And I remember always working with, okay, so who does Bob remind you of in your life? Which I didn't say dot 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 when that first wound of actually feeling pissed off came up. There's where we end up going. And so yes, so Bob ticking me off because he reminds me of Bill and Barry. I'm trying to think of other B words. And then okay, so who do they remind you of? And maybe possibly your brothers or what? No, my dad, or my dad and my mom, or my some type of thing. And it's all comes back to first family. And
Mm-hmm.
so we extrapolate through this filter everybody around us based on our first family patterns. And so the interesting thing is it's our world's 100% subjective. If we want to actually become more grounded and if we want the world to become more grounded, we just have to be more grounded. Freaking simple.
Yes.
Play a little bit more, hug another tree. Every time at 11:11, go out and hug a tree. And at 12:12, join us on the Flow Network show.
That's right. But that's the whole philosophy of Gandhi taught about it: be the change you want to see. And then
Yeah.
we have this concept, we're using the internal flow network effect, which is about that same thing. It's about that heart coherence with yourself, and really allowing yourself to witness the storm, and really this concept of becoming more conscious or more awake. It is painful sometimes. There's things that we don't really like to see about ourselves, what is bothering us, and then accepting, like that, what part is within me, and then how do I integrate heal that, so that we're not no longer this society that's projecting and saying my way is the right way and you're wrong, and we're bad othering, and we're placing all these judgments, because then we're just, staying in the storm. So like you said, by just being grounded in yourself, that's actually how we make change. And we've both been talking about this, having this feeling of needing to do, like, what can we do, what can we do to serve,
Mhm.
how can we show up, and wanting to take to action sort of out there. And we've been coming to this realization of like, let's just really sit in this whole beingness and see, what that feels like, and feel the power of that, and understand from that place, that grounded place of being, of knowing thyself, the action is inspired so naturally.
Yeah. Don't I, I'm and like it's I'm such a convert, and you're the one who introduced me to this concept when we meet at Flow Studios. And a good chunk of the meeting time is to sit in on the balcony over there
Yes.
and have coffee in the sunshine, which and it's just an amazing little sub climate because it's just warm in the middle of winter. As long as there's some kind of a sun, it's very warm.
Mhm.
But the important thing, and I've started to do that with my wife every day, just sit there in the sun and just allow the being, like the sun, to actually beat on my chest,
Mhm.
and then be inspired just naturally from, I think, more of a heart orientation rather than a head. Oh my gosh, I got to get this done, this done, this done. And
Mhm.
it's fascinating to me to do a LinkedIn post takes, maybe 13 minutes, 12 minutes on average. And whereas before, when I used to write what I call posts or blogs, it used to take days.
Mhm.
Because I was doing it from my head.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
we can be so much more productive.
yeah, it just so and it, I, Sharon actually went and got some education in terms of a master's of adult education, and she introduced me to some concept called ontological orientations. And all ontological means is it's about the study of way of being and how ways of being influence the ways we do things. And in our society, all the orientations to leadership, all pretty much all, like easily 99.99%, are leadership, entrepreneurism, sales, marketing, everything are at that doing level.
Mhm.
When the action all happens at the being level, this ontological level.
Mhm.
And for me, it's just such a beautiful thing. And again, I'm going down below because it's the earth grounded aspect of how we be that
Mhm.
informs how we do.
Mhm.
And that's really important to get an understanding of that. And the education system was not premised on that. The education system was premised on the head first orientation. So you have to actually think your way through. It's all about doing.
Mhm.
All these fantastic best practice ways of doing a flow show, doing a post, doing a communication, decision making, problem solving, everything you can imagine is all at that higher level.
Yeah.
And 95% of our behavior happens at the way of being level.
Mhm.
And in the education system at the time, and it's just continued to move in this direction, doesn't really understand what the hell to do with that. We've
Mhm.
known for 100 years this is the way it is, and they haven't been able to actually shift gears all that fast because they got to actually re-educate teachers. They got to re-educate the structure. They got to re-educate the whole exam and scoring, tracking, trending. It's a really big undertaking. But
Mhm.
here we are. I
Right.
think it's actually it. It's now the cat's out of the bag, the horse is out of the barn, the something else
Mhm.
is out of something. We're now out into the real world where this is what's happening, and the millennials are showing up, and the ones younger than the millennials are showing up saying, I'm not doing what my parents did.
Mhm.
That's just crap. 2008 blew out. Now we're in 2020, and from my perspective, the implications are going to be at least 10 years, if like through the scope of macroeconomics and the way things have been in the past.
Mhm.
That's because that's not the way we need to be going.
Right.
It's going
And
to be We're going to be moving into this other orientation, which is not a head first, but it's a heart first, body first, grounded first
being first.
orientation. Being first.
Yeah.
What if, being outrageously happy and joyous and fun?
Mhm.
That's kind of the whole trip. That's
Mhm.
what this is
Yes.
really all about.
And I can reflect on my past self, who understood this stuff from an intellectual level, but underneath was sort of bypassing deeper things, like, going for that joy and going for those higher vibrations, and missing some deeper wisdom that was kind of on the flip side of that. And so, to use an example of being, and I think that this is where a lot of people that are settling into this being and having this hope for this new future that we've all, well, many of us have been longing for. It's, at least for myself, and I was talking to a friend last night, that we and myself had been such a doing person. Like, I just wouldn't be able to sit still. I had 5 jobs at one point, and I was just, for me, success as a society uh, deemed it was being really busy and really productive, or so I thought, and completely burned myself out. And so then I went to the other pendulum and was sort of living in a forest and kind of just being. However, in that space of being, I had some guilt that I wasn't enough, that I was being lazy, that I should be doing more. I wasn't fully allowing myself to honor that, getting to know my new self. I was still looping through these, ideas. And so I talk a lot about this concept of your frequency of your beingness. Like, if we're just energy and information vibrating, then when we be, are we really able to be joyous and be happy and be grounded and be those things? Or are we still getting, are there still things within us that sort of need to be reflected, to let go of,
Yeah.
so that we can really hold that being and then perform that action and create this new world from that true space of being, from that true space of unconditional love, that true space of compassion, that true space of deep knowingness of why you're here on the planet. And really, it is going back to our simplicity. I think it's going back to, how do we want to connect, how do we want this world to look, and coming together with others who are in that space of being, and having fun co-creating forward.
Yeah. You introduced me to the idea of what do you call it? Not a tribe. No, a soul family.
Family.
Soul family. Uh, in contrast to the first family we're born into on the planet, and it's my observation that the biases that we all have are the things that we download from our first family. So those are the opportunity in a loving setting within our family, and sometimes not so loving setting in the first family. We have all of these opportunities to actually sit with our biases and our challenges. And the idea then is to move beyond that. So we start to claim our own personal power by letting go of some of these family biases. And then the exercise, which I'm learning about, is that we seek out, people who actually, an ecosystem of people who are aligned more similarly with us, which then starts to talk or addresses what my understanding is of this notion of soul family, the people who get you. And it may not be, there's tons of those, but the people who get you, you really start to value those people, because you don't have to actually put on airs. You can be grounded, and you can actually be hugely powerful, and they're cool with that. It's really the hugely powerful, in my experience, it's the hugely powerful. I've always had to hide my creative self and the business self and the music self and the art self, and I was just way too much. So every time I was in a corporate setting, they were trying to put me in some little box. Can you just stick over here and just do this thing? And naturally I would do it and then blow the box up again. And then I just didn't fit in. I didn't fit into any of those. And I just thought it was just me, but I started to realize, whoa, after a time, that's kind of everyone's journey.
Vicky's saying, you two are my soul family.
There you go. Thank you, Vicky. Yes.
Sending you much love. For
Yeah.
the ones to flow or fit in, that is the question. And
Yes.
You're right. We're all realizing all the different ways we've put ourselves in boxes and limited our power, given our power away. For me, there's a lot of pain that I've had to move through, and giving compassion to myself, and understanding it's not about blaming anyone, that we're all on this journey of understanding, like, what is life without boxes, but how do we still create this sense of structure? And we're all learning new ways of being. And how do we give ourselves permission to even, in a relationship, say, like, hey, I'm still learning who I am, and I always will be. And this concept of allowing yourself, like we talk about Groundhog Day, to change every day, to change your views every single day.
Yeah,
And
who you are. I see Anastasia. Is it? So I got.
yeah, she said her. So yeah, integrating being, that I feel is the journey I'm on as
What?
well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I was because we're having to write website copy and such, and ontological orientation, which is ways of being. So it's the way of being. The way this was introduced to me just a month or so ago was it's the combination of the pathways are through the body, so to get some sense through the body, also through energy work as well as language or storytelling. And the one that's most obvious are the stories. Those are the ones that actually you can connect with other people. The stuff that's very personal work is more the body work. And I come from, also part of my background is that of a Zen Shiatsu practitioner. So that's energy work, and you're working the meridians, which is central to traditional Chinese medicine. So I have a background on that, and I also have a background in energy. So the body and the energy bit. And then you, Sarah, introduced me to a much deeper understanding of what we call market telling.
Mm.
So what story are you market telling yourself? Because that's the story that you're putting out there. And is that story serving to keep you grounded or really integrate your being? Or is it actually serving to throw you off into some other spin where you're not really being grounded, so therefore you're not really getting the results you want from your life experience? So the whole way of being is something that's been around for a long time, and I was again just sharing with my wife, who came up with this the research when she was doing her master's on ontological thinking. The Maharishi University, which is in the Wisconsin in the United States, everything they teach is ontologically based. So they give off, or they give, I guess it's bachelor's degrees as well as master's degrees and even PhDs. All of their teaching is grounded in the reality of being. So first, you want to understand how to become an engineer. You go through the courses on engineering, but it's tied basically to the grounded understanding of being and the influence of unconscious bias. And then you go, and if you want to actually talk about or learn mathematics, so with mathematics, geometry, calculus, whatever it is, and it's grounded in this notion of being and bias. And I thought, at the time when I heard about it the first time, which was a long time ago, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. But at this point in time, I think that's likely to be a fairly good model for education to move forward with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so radical. It's just going to take a little bit of, I think it's going to take the little shimmy and shaking that we've got going on right now with the COVID. We're going to need a little bit more crisis before we actually shift that whole frame of reference and that framework for all of society. And that's what we're trying to do at Flow Network. Not what we're trying to do. That's what we're doing, is to be able to go and help people understand that and the mechanics associated with that.
Yeah, creating a different narrative, a different story, like listening to what the market's telling us, and then just reflecting back a different story through our own life experiences, and just sharing. And I think that's really important for us to share, because we learn from each other when we share, and we also realize how similar we are in terms of different challenges we have. Because yes, the being, we literally, I'm working on writing a book. I have been for a while, the new face of broadcasting, and broadcasting from a place of that being. We, as you mentioned about the Zen Shiatsu and doing energy work, and I'm really grateful for our ability to do that exchange, because it is really powerful to have others share and be a mirror reflection for ourselves. And we sort of mentioned about going from first family. So when we've talked about this, you go first family, you let go of what you'll still be attracting those mirrors or life situations from that, until you recognize, oh, that's not who I am. And then you go into this discovery space of, really understanding who it is that we are. And in that, we become these clear channels to broadcast this true vibration of what love is, of what our true nature is. And this is the other side of the market telling, a pull. Like, we literally become magnets to pulling to us soul family, clients, situations that will be more reflective of our true nature, when we do that integrating of our being, as Anastasia said.
Yeah, The thing, just as you said that, I was reminded the orientation, the old legacy orientation to broadcasting, marketing, and sales
Mm-hmm.
is a push, which is all very much head oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas and so head is all about doing. The pull is actually much more of a heart orientation, and it's about being,
Mm-hmm.
which actually is body centric. And to be body centric, you have to be earth centric. Because what is this? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Basically, this is the same stuff that we made of the earth. And whatever your philosophical stance is on the earth to you, you're exactly right. And then the second question is, are you getting the results you want? Because if you're getting the results you want, stick with that definition of who the earth is to you. If you're not getting the results you want, go on a bit of a journey to try and understand maybe there's a better frame of reference for your relationship with the earth. Because the earth, I've learned, having been married to someone who comes deep ecology base and environmental base, basically it's all the same thing. It's all about ways of being, and you can observe this happening in nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's through cycles.
Mm-hmm.
We breathe out carbon monoxide, and the trees
Dioxide.
actually the dioxide. That's right. And then the trees actually ingest that and cycles this through again. Like we have all of these interdependent relationships that have not been defined that way for a human being. So we haven't got in the education system really great metaphors to be able to go and say, here's what a functional team is. Here's what a functional family is. Here's what a functional person is. Mm-hmm. Instead, we built structures because they couldn't get at the unconscious bias. So they put structures to try and direct, control, and contain behavior. So we didn't have crazy freaking society running all over the place. And you know what? It's worked for a lot of, thousands of years. Time for a change.
Yeah, and again, we'll argue if it has worked or if it's worked for just a smaller percentage. Because
exactly. See, I'm of the age group that says I can get away with it. Says it's worked. Way to go! All awesome, because we've got chocolate chip cookies and we have a bunch of other great things that we know how to make.
And my generation is here to be the change makers.
Exactly. And I'm here to bridge with it.
Actually very wounded based off of different patterns that have been in society. And I mean, it is time for a change. Absolutely.
Yes. Change is already happening. COVID
is. It's already happening. How can we stay in the space of grace for ourselves in this new phase? How can we hold space for all things to exist in our society as everyone is on their own journey, letting go of things? How can we keep, it's not about being a judgment day. Someone on our Facebook, Justin, said it's non-judgment day, which I love.
It's non-judgment day.
It's non-judgment day. How can we stay in a place of non-judgment as this storm is, we're just kind of getting started, I think, especially as we get back into integrating into society.
Yeah. Didn't we actually do that when you use the word storm? Because we ourselves, when we first got together with business, and it's typical of every business I've ever worked with, is they come together as a business, and then they norm. So here's our norm. So we're going to core values, purpose, vision, hugging, being nice to each other, having good days, all that kind of stuff. And you set those up and you live yourself in accordance with that. And you have targets for revenue and targets for this and this. And the performance doesn't really happen until you get to the next stage, which is the storming stage, which is the crisis we all need to look inside, thinking the other person is the problem, and you realize, whoops, it's not the other person. What is when you point the finger? Someone had told someplace, there's one that goes out, but there's three that come back to you. So pay attention to the three that come back to you.
And you can't wipe the dirty mirror clean and think you're gonna.
Yeah. So storming is really central to evolving quickly, and it's not until we storm as a society that we're going to be able to perform. So I believe that COVID is the first really big well-being storm that we've been. Most of the storms we've had have been wealth. And there's ways of fixing wealth with structure.
Yeah.
And there's going to be two camps go through this particular storm. There's going to be the camp to use structure to contain and control. Then there's going to be the camp that says, okay, let's actually express ourselves. Let's focus more on being. The control ones are going to be focused more on doing. Which group do you think is actually going to fit in to which ones, Sarah? So I think that the millennials, exactly. The millennials and the Zers and the ones that are behind, who are actually much more evolved than our generation, me, they actually get an understanding of, you know what? Enough of this old freaking structure and this control and containment, manipulation. I want freedom, baby.
Yes, and how to create structure that allows for this freedom.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not that everyone's going to be going there, but I think eventually that's where everyone's going. This little bit now for the next maybe a couple of years might be a bit tipsy. It might be a little bit ouchy for those who actually fight this big pivot. And there's a lot of people that are going to fight the pivot.
Loving it all right.
I got my guitar out.
All right, let's hear that. Let's hear the intro.
That's just a little sing.